Hey everybody, welcome to Beat the Banks, community training that we do every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, here on the socials. I'm your host, Chris, the DeFi Professor. Pleasure to be with you today. Hopefully everyone's having a great week. Hopefully we can, hopefully we can end the week strong. Basically, is where we are at. Let's kind of take a look at where we're at currently. There we go. So we've seen a little bit of a rebound here, which is good to see. Last 24 hours we are back up. XRP back above $1.40, which is good to see. Solana creeping closer to $100. So what we did see was a huge, just odd pattern that happened a couple days ago, right? We saw Bitcoin go down below almost to 60K. Let's get in a little closer, shall we? 60, yeah, at 60. I think that was the closest we got to below. So we touched 60, and now we're back up a little bit from where we were. It's a very interesting drop, right? At this point, we're nearly, well, we're roughly almost 50% down from where we were in the peak, which if we take a look at where that is, that was on October 6th, which was 4 months ago. So it really wasn't that long ago that we were in a situation where we were in a much different position. Now, in the wake of that, we've seen a lot of things go down. We've seen, well, the first thing I'll definitely mention is that we still have a bunch of crypto treasuries that are still in existence. Things like MicroStrategy, Metaplanet, Bitmine Immersion, Sharplink Gaming. I mean, there's a whole variety of different DATCOs, as we call them, digital asset treasury companies, where they use their treasury to generally just kind of stick with one specific asset, right? So you can see we're actually not a bad spot for some of these, but some of them, like MicroStrategy, I believe, is quite a bit under. Oh, they're 0.76. Okay, so it's not terrible, but it's not great. What I did want to mention, and this probably gives a little bit of context, specifically, let me grab that tweet. Yes, this one good. And let me pull it up because it kind of gives it just kind of frames, frankly, the thought process for so many of these companies, right? So Bitmine has an Ethereum treasury. Their goal is to own 5% of the global ETH supply. Yes, this looks terrible, right? But they're going to continue to buy because it's all about this piece. Their job is to outperform over the cycle. Because they believe so deeply in ETH as the future of finance, which is part of DeFi, they believe that the best bet from an ROI standpoint is to stick with Ethereum. And he's right. If you are worried that Solana is going to go to zero. You are playing the wrong game. I just said this on one of our member calls. Solana has so many things involved with it that, in my opinion, the price can only go up from here, because the price of Solana is often tied to the volume and the activity on Solana. Using Solana helps appreciate the price. There are multiple projects that have announced over the last week or so, and we can talk a little bit about that. That's going to be, well, it's basically just Jupiter. There's many others, right? But Jupiter had a huge day, huge week rather, with what they talked about at Cat Lumpur, which is their annual. Ooh, it's like a dust bunny just kind of out of nowhere. That was weird. So they had a couple of big announcements. Let me grab the one in particular. So just as a heads up, I am a longtime holder and staker of the Jupe token. That's their token there at Jupiter. And they announced a lot of big announcements. The first, and I'll go through the three specifically that I think are the biggest. And I apologize for not having this ready beforehand. To me, this is still the biggest one. Jupiter has a partnership with Polymarket, and this is big for three reasons, really. The first is that Polymarket now has infrastructure that's going to get their product into the hands of many users. Why? Because Jupiter has been working tirelessly over the past couple of years to build a gigantic one-stop shop moat with Jupiter Mobile, Jupiter Wallet, Jupiter ID. There's a whole bunch of Jupiter branded products that all work together as one-stop shop, so you never really have to look any further if you're looking to have the best swaps, loans, LPs, liquidity. They have a little bit of that now. That's probably the next step, honestly. And now they have things like prediction markets. They already have perps. They tick a lot of boxes. They're very fast. They have a platform that can handle a lot of traffic. They handled Trump. In fact, along with Meteora, they were the partners, along with MoonPay, to work with the Trump team to get that Trump token out and not kill the market, which worked beautifully, in my opinion. They made a lot of money off of that, guys. So they've been able to use that to develop more products. Their Metis product is the main reason why Coinbase has access to millions of tokens on Solana now through Coinbase.com. That's part of that technology. They're working with Ondo to bring RWAs and tokenized commodities onto Solana. That's all using Jupiter's RFQ system. And now Polymarket has this technology that they're coming in with, and they'll be able to tokenize everything and also have that available. Predictions, outcomes, events, that type of thing. Now, the other part that's interesting about this is that Solana has a very deep partnership with Kalshi. And Jupiter being the largest DEX now overall, I think they are. Raydium can say what they want. Shout out to the Raydium team, of course, but Jupiter just has a better overall product. This gives them the best of both worlds, honestly. They're going to have access to everything at Jupiter because people are going to want it. Let's say that now that they're going to be tokenizing all of these events, that people are going to want to do things with them, move things around, swap things, liquidity, all of that. They can do that at Jupiter. So to me, this is probably the most important announcement they made. The second biggest one that they made Let's see if I can find it, because I want to find the specific one. It's about Jupiter Global. There we go. This is going to allow many people across the world to be able to use very simplified payments at local merchants. If you're in the APAC region, they have a QR pay system. There's a couple other people that have that. Binance has that. They have a, if you've seen stories about the country Bhutan, which is one of the wealthiest countries in the world thanks to Bitcoin mining, they have Binance Pay QR codes at all types of merchants all throughout the country. So this should be able to work with all of that. The other part is you can send fiat money worldwide. That's fine. Using SWIFT. That's all part of this beautiful relationship that Jupiter has with EVM, that they can do things like that. But the one that's interesting is the Jupiter card. This is a premium crypto credit card. You do have to KYC for this, by the way. That there's one thing about that. But it's a Visa card. So you can have funds in USDC on Solana, I'm guessing through Jupiter, through your Jupiter wallet. And you can use that as a credit card at 150 million plus merchants worldwide. The reason I like that specific detail is that when you go to purchase goods at multiple places, around the world, or just in general, some of them don't like, they're called top-up debit cards. So what I mean by that is there are quite a few cards that won't work. If you have like a prepaid debit card, which some of these crypto debit cards are, right? I think my Coinbase Visa at some places doesn't work because it's seen, or it's like signing up for services online or something like that, because they see it as a top-up debit card. This won't have this won't have that problem. But making it easy for people to get on chain, making it easy for people to use services like this is what's important. Pardon me. So this is also an important thing. They also got a $35 million infusion through a group called Parify Capital, and they settled it. They bought Jupe, but they settled it all in Jupe USD, which gives great stability to their new stablecoin. The fresh 35 million for having all of that in circulation. It's a good sign, right? Good for market cap, good to use, and they have multiple products you can do that with. So hats off to Jupiter for a fantastic summit. Ondo also had a huge summit. We talked about this on our Wednesday podcast, which is called Total Value Locked. And there were a couple of things that were quite interesting that I need to bring up. And I want to bring up, let me find it. Sam from Futurenomics. Shout out to him. I'm just gonna lightly glaze over this because for what we talk about here on Beat the Banks, this is the most important part of what happened this week. Jupiter being part of how this is all going to happen. This is an interesting idea. T+1 dies on stage. What that means is, trade plus the 1 day of settlement, which is an quote unquote innovation in this space. But now everyone wants 24/7 markets. The new New York Stock Exchange product will be 24/7. The Oracle from Chainlink will be 24/5. So I'm sure it'll be fine over the weekend, right? But this is going to be the most interesting part. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that is in just a minute. RWA tokenization. And what that, there's a very specific word you're going to hear, whether it's through my new set of ebooks that are coming out, what you're seeing in the news about tokenization. Crypto is a dated term in this space now, because crypto, to me, is just quote unquote the industry, but cryptocurrency, there's only a few real coins that I consider cryptocurrency these days. Bitcoin is one of them. Maybe you could say Caspa is another. Things that are technically proof of work that use actual cryptocurrency math equations to come up with securing the network. Those are what I would consider cryptocurrency coins. All these other ones that are just derivatives, digital assets is what I really just call them, because they're coming from consensus staking mechanisms, right? Ethereum is now a proof of stake blockchain. There's no more proof of work for stuff like that. You don't have to wait for a miner to go and verify your transaction. Now you just have full consensus node validators that come to consensus very quickly on your transaction. I've talked quite a bit on this show about how 2026 is the year of integration. This is what integration looks like, because they've had multiple panels with trillions of dollars in assets under management represented by the people speaking on the stage. Institutions aren't entering crypto, they're migrating infrastructure. That's a very important point to know. Why? Because institutions have been here in the DeFi space for more than 3 years. So none of this is new to us. Canton Network, a project I talk about quite a bit in our Wednesday podcast, because I'm fairly bullish on what they're doing. They're the quote-unquote closed bank rails or closed institutional rails because they're institution only. They have had many of these companies coming out today talking about tokenization, testing blockchain technology in their sandbox for a very long time. And I'm talking about Goldman, I'm talking about JP Morgan, I'm talking about all these other groups. They were one of the first places to provide them the blockchain sandbox and then give them the controls that they need to figure out if this is going to work for them. This is also true. This is why the banks are trying to figure out ways through the banking lobby, and that kind of leads in just into democratic pressure, to try and delay the Clarity Act as much as possible. Because even though it passed last August, the Genius Act passed for stablecoins. The Clarity Act is taking longer because banks want to make sure they're not going to get run up on. And this is something we talk about weekly, right? We've talked at least 4 times in the last 6 months about setting up a digital savings account. Why, and even in the case of Coinbase, why get 0.07% on average in a savings account when you can go to Coinbase and get 3.5%? The banks know that this is a problem. They don't fear crypto because they've been here for a while. They fear being disintermediated by better plumbing, which is true. When I'm on chain, I don't have to, if I'm sending money to myself, like for example, I send money from my online bank account to my credit union, which, brick and mortar, the ACH process, 2 to 3 business days. It's a pain. But that is the reality of where we're at. If I send money from one account to another here on chain, in stablecoins or in anything really, it's done in less than 2 seconds. In what world would people think that's not a better system, right? Especially in a system where banks, they would rather keep T+1 because they want to make more money in interest. There. That's the quiet part they're not saying out loud. The reason why they don't want 24/7 is they want more time to hang on to your deposits to earn more in interest for themselves. Not for you, because I still know plenty of people that have checking accounts that earn 0. Let me know in the chat how much you make off your savings account. How much do you normally get? And maybe it's like maybe 5 cents, depending. If you're a big roller, maybe it could be $1 a month, maybe $1 every 6 months. Let me know. I want to know. One second. But that's the problem. It's that you generally don't make any money off your checking account. It's just a place for you to hold your money. And they take it and they make money off of you. 90% of your deposit is rehypothecated into their system where they go and make interest. Yeah. It is what it is. This kind of freaks people out. One global capital market that never sleeps is being wired in real time. That's true. It's been real forever. The other problem is that in this capital market, which is in decentralized finance, even though there are different blockchain ecosystems, nobody owns them. No country can lay claim to this infrastructure. That is the other big problem that banks have with this. So if they can do anything to keep this from getting to President Trump's desk, they're going to do it. Now, with that said, they still want this to happen. Why? Because this gives them more options to make better returns on your money. I mean, I'll show the video here, but the problem with the Clarity Act is that banks are still having issues with the Genius Act, which is already enacted, already in law. They want an ethics investigation into President Trump for World Liberty Financial, and that's warranted. The problem is that he wasn't president when World Liberty Financial was created. Is it ethically ugly? Sure. But when has he ever stepped away from being ethically ugly? He hasn't. Like in his first term, he didn't get rid of any of his golf courses or any of these other things that, people who go into politics do for the respect of doing so. He didn't do any of that. He's not doing any of that now. I mean, his properties, whether you're talking about World Liberty Financial, the Truth Social ETF, USD1, which is his stablecoin that is on multiple blockchains, American Bitcoin mining, they're not technically in his name, but they're all technically in his family's name. Do you want to go after him for just trying to be a capitalist and make money? I mean, that's what we're all trying to do in this space, right? Yeah, we're in it for the tech, at least some of us like myself, but we still want to make money. We have houses to pay for and families and mouths to feed. We'll see what happens here. But according to Senator Cynthia Lummis, the senator from Wyoming, due to multiple issues that are raised, the deadline that was given on Monday by President Trump's envoy to the groups of banking, fintech, and crypto companies that were in on that meeting was the end of the month, and that's not happening anymore. It looks most likely, according to Senator Lummis, that Senator Thune, who would be in charge of getting that to the floor, is making time for it roughly later this spring. Later this spring is not a good sign. In fact, where was I that I saw someone mentioned April 3rd is the date. By April 3rd would be when it probably happens. Will the bill be a shell of itself by the time it gets there? Yeah. Are they going to figure out a way to get past the Genius Act? I'm not sure. But there's a lot of skin in the game now. So, the fact that most of these big companies have now allowed their financial investors to allow their customers to, have up to 4% of their portfolios in digital assets and crypto is a calculated bet here. But ultimately, the system is going to keep growing. All of these companies are, for the most part, betting on that. Man, this Sui Datco is way under. Look at the hype ones, though. Sure, they're happy. Hmm. We'll see exactly how much worse this gets, but it looks like a lot of the bad juju, from the gold and silver trade that fell down like a house of cards. A lot of people. I think, to me, I think that's the plausible explanation as to why the market's been terrible. You had some forced selling going on due to some really risky plays. People are just going to do that. At least in most global markets, they have volatility halts for things like this. In these markets, there is no such thing. Would a volatility halt would have stopped this? I don't know, honestly. Probably would have helped on October 10th, but would you have wanted that? I don't know, honestly. So, in terms of looking at the next 30 days, we're looking for a movement back up. But one thing that was talked about here is Project Crypto. So this is from earlier, over the weekend, where the CFTC and the SEC are going to work together to have unified regulations moving forward. Now, the Clarity Act actually is going to give more power to the CFTC over the SEC for crypto and digital asset-based companies. What we haven't heard yet is if President Trump is going to give them a huge break for staying in the United States. I think that's going to happen at some point. It's all of a matter of when. But what are they going to be chasing? A lot of these institutions who want to get the right results, they're wanting to specifically go after Tether. Let me see if Tether actually has their numbers in here. 12.4 billion in market cap increase over Q4, which is huge. And I think the most interesting part about Tether's gains is that they continue to buy gold, they continue to buy US Treasuries. Seeing the fact that they actually own more than Saudi Arabia at this point is a remarkable thing. They bought 6.5 billion in treasuries. Now, one thing to note about Tether is they have less than 30 employees. And for them to make this much money, to be able to continue to grow these bags, is just insane. This is the reason why so many of these banks and institutions want in. Let me see if they have the actual number. Because I know Q3 was 7 billion or 7.6 billion or something like that. So if maybe it was down because they were buying so much more, but I mean, they own like 140 metric tons of gold, and it's being stored in a nuclear bunker. It doesn't quite say here how much the... But yeah, they're slinging money around. 100 million in Anchorage Digital, which is huge. They're a huge money issuer. They are Genius compliant, and they actually have had a money license even within the Biden administration. So that's a huge investment for them. Investment in Gold.com, investment in T0 for USDT powered payments. They had a great year last year. They have Omnichain USDT0 with Arbitrum as the hub chain. That was huge, and they're just going to get better. They're going to get bigger, and it's all about everyone chasing Tether at this point. Yeah, I mean, just look at that market cap. It's gigantic. USDC is getting closer. They're chipping into that lead. But to see anybody else getting closer is going to be difficult. Athena is the closest at 6.5 billion DAI or USDS continues to lose share here. But overall, the move to on-chain, it's inevitable, right? Even the president has said, we're trying to get rid of the old guard, the old broken financial system, and bring everything into crypto and on-chain. He is quoted as saying that. So again, to all of you who are just naysayers, oh wow, 5 on the extreme fear and greed. People are going a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It's not too late to get into this game. And I say that, you know, with a lot of hope, because we're actually quite fine within our communities. We're just farming stablecoins, guys. We're doing that. That's the majority of, at least for most of us, we're mostly farming stablecoins, fixed rate farming. I was just talking about a really great farm that matures next week. That if you got in at 12, you should. It's now at almost 17. Time to get out. So it's a nice uptick, a nice appreciation in terms of what you got there. So, yeah, there's plenty of time, plenty of spaces at the table, guys. This is not an exclusive thing. Anyone can get into this. It's all about having the right plan and understanding how things work, and that's why you want to come over to our group. If you want to learn a little bit more about, you know, what we do here, feel free to check out our free group. Let me put the link up here, and that is Beacon DeFi. But this is Total Value Locked, is the name of our free group. Absolutely free to join. School.com/beacon. Join the many who have come down and are learning how to get set up, figure out their portfolios, their plans, and get the right information to go and make the right decisions to stay safe in this place. So many people are leaving, and I feel for them because they could have been doing what we've been doing and stayed very comfortable. We're very comfy. School.com/beacon. Well, they're going to continue to push this narrative that they're doing everything they can for crypto. Paul Atkins is really doing everything he can to show you that getting into digital assets is safe. And it is. It's very secure. We have really good cryptography. Self-custody is part of the American way in the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, right? You should be able to custody your assets. You shouldn't have to keep them locked up in a bank and hope that they stay liquid. You can't anyway. It's fractional reserve banking. You go to, let's say you had $50,000 in the bank and you went to go cash out your account. You're not going to get it all. You can say, hey, give us a couple days so we can get all this together. We certainly respect that you've entrusted your funds to us. While we go and make an absurd amount of interest off of your chunk of deposits into our overall balance sheet, and you get nothing while we make money. And that's okay. It's just how banks work, right? Banks are a vault of liquidity where you can go and, and trust that your assets will be safe, and you can do whatever you like. But just know that there's an alternative out here that's battle tested now, going on 6 years at least, where you can become your own bank. What are the rates today? Edge Ultra Yield USDC at 10%. I want to say it was better on Unichain. No, it must have been Hyper EVM. Oh well, the hype train is at 64%, but I'm not the biggest fan of MEV Capital right now because they had stream exposure. But these are well above what you'd get at your local bank. Show me a bank that gives you these types of rates while you get to custody your assets. How's it looking at Euler? 11% for this T-bill. I want to say Unichain had really good rates this week. Yeah, Unichain USDC, 23%. It is highly utilized, so that's one thing to consider. The reason why it's so high is because most of it's being utilized. If more money comes in, there's not a ton of money in here, then that rate goes down. How about on Plasma? USDT 0, 11, not bad, very small here. How about a Camino? $12.5 now for USDC Turbo with 3.7 in. That's good to see. Steakhouse back up, on its way back up, maybe to 9.5, 10% even. This is aggressive though. And basically what this means is they take your capital that you lease through a smart contract, and they go and they spread it to all the different markets that are here on the platform. And for providing that liquidity for all of these markets where people can use it as, collateral to borrow against or anything like that, they're going to give you the lion's share of the APY that they get for that. And that's the beauty of being here in this space. All right. The next 30 days, what else is going to be huge? Well, it's going to be prediction markets. Polymarket, Kalshi. I mean, I can name about 6 more, but these are the 2 that are the biggest. Polymarket, coming into the Jupiter, the Jupiter partnership, they're going to figure out easy ways to get that into the hands of regular people because Jupiter has a mobile app. I'm sure Polymarket will figure out a way to drive people easily to get that set up. Maybe it'll say powered by Jupiter will probably be something they may do. They may have their own specific app that they'll create for this. I mean, thanks to AI coding, you could come up with a mobile app pretty quickly. Add in the fact that Hyperliquid has prediction markets in testnet right now. Prediction markets are going to be huge. It's going to be easier than ever to take outcomes and then use them as liquid investment instruments to then have multiple strategies with. I'm curious to see what those are. I know that there are some people already creating protocol like, it's in beta. Let me see if I can get the correct link for it. I'll shout them out. There's already a couple things already starting to come about. First one's going to be Yuki. But you have yield on top of your Polymarket positions. It's still in beta, but just kind of showing you that there are things happening in this space where you're going to have multiple liquidity strategies for using things like prediction markets. Things that were just kind of like the blink of an eye not that long ago, right? I mean, the fact that you're able to tokenize outcomes. All of these are now technically tokens, and for those of you who are not technically inclined, I can understand how that can be very confusing sounding. But the fact that we can tokenize any part of this, and because of its decentralized finance, all of these assets are what we call composable, meaning that you can take them like Legos and stack them with other things inside of strategies to create yield, similar to what you would get on a, providing capital for collateral for someone to borrow against, and you get that. Those are all really cool things. If anything, for most people, they don't realize how good the tech is, how novel and clever the tech is, how you can earn really good yield over very simple mechanisms that you won't find in what we call the real world, right? In Web 2 and stuff like that, in traditional finance, what we call TradFi. Those are things that are not normally available. So right now, consensus is going on. That's in Hong Kong. I guess it's next week. But there are a lot of people there getting ready for that. There's a lot of side events and just early events that are happening. This will be a very interesting conference. Mainly because it's just at a time where there's a lot of things going on. I'm curious to see what Charles has to say. He got liquidated, by the way. And it's interesting because China is freaking out about crypto right now. Hong Kong is in this special zone that you don't have to worry about that. This is an economic incentive zone, an experimental zone where crypto is okay. So we'll see exactly how more of this plays out. But next week should be a very interesting announcement week. And again, we're in the integration phase, guys. A lot of what has been tested by banks and institutions across the world is going on chain very soon. The US wants to be a leader in all of that. That's why Paul Atkins is talking to the public so much. He wants people to know that the government is going to take this on chain, regardless of how you feel about how the president got there and his support for this. Overall, regardless of how you feel about that, it's a better financial system. It's better for you and me. You just have to embrace the fact that self-custody is a difficult thing, defending yourself from yourself, right? You might have a hard time in the event that you don't know how to take care of your money. That's okay, because there's also what we call centralized DeFi, CDFI, Coinbase, Robinhood, Bybit, Kraken. They're all going to have CDFI type services where it looks like DeFi on the hood, but everything is custodied within the centralized exchange of your choice. They're going to offer you those same things, just without you needing to self-custody all that. And it's what we don't like. We don't want you to treat the CEX like a bank, but if you just are using it for specific purposes and you self-custody the majority of your assets that you buy spot in a hardware wallet or some type of cold storage, that's also good. But these are all things that will be commonplace, in my opinion, in the next 12 to 18 months. That's all I really had today. I was having a little bit of a hard time trying to figure out what to talk about today, mainly because the main thing that people are worried about is the market. I don't mind stuff like this, to be honest. And of course, I don't want anyone to lose money, right? Because that's the whole thing about what we do at Beacon, and just my personal North Star in this arena is that I'm here to help people understand how this works, and also how to stay safe and secure. I don't want anyone losing money. And in general, if you follow the right rules and understand the whole point about self-custody, not over-investing, that type of thing, doing your due diligence and stuff, you should be in a decent position. Yeah, we're going to be rangy here, guys. That's the signals I'm seeing here. We're going to be fairly rangy. But there's an uptick. Is the bottom in? That's a nuanced answer. I don't know if we're completely done with all of these people who are caught. You know, possible forced sellers and stuff like that. But we'll be watching. Again, we do this show every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, here to talk about concepts about, you know, decentralized finance, on-chain investing, blockchains, financial literacy. These are all things that you should have access to, guys. That's the main reason why we do this. Most people don't know, right? You go sit into an Uber and they, you know, some guy will tell you about XRP or, you know, Pi Network or something like that. They're not going to talk to you about how to actually take your coins and convert them into stable coins and actually hold them yourself in self-custody to earn yield. Yeah, it's great to buy crypto coins that go from 0 to 100x, but those are fleeting moments. You want to actually use DeFi and digital assets to actually grow your wealth at this point, because really that's the most important part. So with that said, we'll be back. You can check us out next. For a Beacon show next Wednesday. We'll have the band back in town. Should have the same panel we were going to have Wednesday. They couldn't make it. They'll be on next Wednesday. So have a lot of things to talk about. A lot of things, especially with what Layer Zero is going to be doing on February 10th. The start of Consensus will be on February 10th, and we'll see a lot more things happening. Probably a little bit more of a clear message moving into ETH Denver week, which this year it's a week earlier. It's February 17th to the 21st. Normally it's last week. The last week in February is generally when ETH Denver happens. So them moving it up a week and having it enclosed in one specific smaller venue called New Build City is going to be very interesting to see. Excited to see a lot of friends, meet up with members and stuff like that are going to be there in Denver. So please support, like, follow, subscribe if you found value. Greatly appreciate everybody who does so. Let me do a quick look to make sure I'm not missing anybody on the chats. Thanks to everybody for your support. I really appreciate you. And stay safe out there. Keep beating those banks. 07. Beacons up. Banks down. Take care, everybody.